Thanks for joining us this week on the show. I am sharing one of my favorite tools in my personal stress resilience toolkit, and I can't wait to introduce you or help you dive a little more deeply into the power of Bach flower essences and their capacity to help you balance emotions, to bring things back into a little more ease, to lighten your load. So if you are new to them, or you're ready to take a deeper look, this is a great episode for you to help you cultivate more resilience and inspire yourself to move forward a little lighter and brighter. Thanks for joining us this week. It's time to flip the script on stress and learn how to thrive today and throughout your days. Join me for inspiration and interviews with folks who are shining their light in the world in the areas of positive mindset, health, and well-being. I'm your host, Susi Vine. Let's get happified. Welcome back. I'm happy to be with you this week for a conversation that, again, is just between the two of us, wanting to check in with you, see how you are holding up in these wild times, and share with you some of my favorite tools, natural remedies that offer support when your emotions feel really big, really loud, really overwhelming, and you're looking for ways to come back into balance. Welcome back to Happified. I'm Susi Vine, and I am passionate about natural ways to master the stress in our lives. I'm not talking about deleting stress, because we need healthy stress to inspire us, to drive us, to move us forward. And I'm not talking about numbing out or muting emotions that are uncomfortable, because no emotions are bad. All emotions are messengers. However, those uncomfortable emotions can get really loud, really overwhelming, and exhausting. Even send us into hiding, if you will, in an effort to not have to engage, not have to go through that experience of that emotion. However, as a wonderful guest of mine, brilliant co-author of the book Burnout, Completing the Stress Cycle, Amelia Nagoski, loved to remind me that emotions are not caves. They're dark. You can't see what's inside of there, but they are tunnels, and you move through them. So with my remedies and natural support, which are readily available to you, I feel like these give you a little extra step to mastering these emotions. So today we're going to talk about the ways that I have been, the way that I have seen people feeling these days. And I'm going to share with you some of these tools. If these are a lot, of course, I might get a little bit long-winded because I'm passionate about Bach flower essences. I do have some resources I'll be sharing with you towards the end of the episode. And of course, as a flower essence practitioner, along with stress transformation coach, it's what I love to do. So if you feel like I am a voice of reason, somebody who can meet you where you are to support you in moving through these tunnels, again, I'd love to support you. And there's lots more resources and information available at 3xlessstress.com, the home of my work, my podcast, and the things that I'm creating and sharing with the world. So let's dig in. As I'm already long-winded, there is a lot to be feeling right now. You know, life is happening pretty fast. I think we can all agree this year has felt like it is flying by, 2026, although all years tend to be feeling like they're speeding up. And I've heard it say as we get older, time goes faster. We have a lot of commitments and we show up in a lot of ways for a lot of different people. So caregiving is one of those ways in which we pick up stress, be that for children, for our adult parents who might be needing more support right now, relationships as general life stress ratchets up. Within relationships, we also see stress, not feeling heard in communications. And of course, let's talk about the elephant in the room, social division and the stress that comes from this world we are living in, the way that we have been kind of shored up into what some people choose to see as two different sides. The political division has been heavy, has been contentious, and that can't not contribute to the stress that we are carrying. It's pretty hard to avoid it. If we tune in to news and global events, we don't see much room for encouragement there. Financial pressure in these times, uncertainty, the future is a little hard to understand, to know what to expect. Our crystal ball is broken. I'm not offering any bets on what the future is going to look like. However, I'm holding out hope. I'm holding the space where I am, the work that I do. I'm here to shine light, and I hope that you see benefit in holding space and shining light. I think that some of us have to work to remain positive in these times that feel overwhelming, and that's why I'm glad you're here, and maybe that's why you're inspired to listen to this episode and how you can lift some of these heavier emotions and feel more in balance so that we aren't stuck in overwhelm and even in despair. So come with me. Let's take a look at what we can do to tip the scales, to flip the script on stress. So some people assign a lot of things to stress. However, stress is our reaction to the stressors in our lives. Sometimes we let a lot of things keep simmering on the stove, those low-grade stressors, homes that aren't as healthy as they could be, jobs that just kind of wear away at our souls day after day. As I already said, relationships where communication is starting to suffer. And these general ongoing stressors start to weigh us down, start to help our emotions feel a little bit heavier, a little less comfortable, because we're aware of these things, whether or not we're ready to take action on those. They start to have an impact in our resilience. So we are in a place where we can start to make the choices. We can choose what stressors we allow to keep on impacting us. And we can take a look at how that stress is landing in our lives and how we want to shift it. So I'd love to hear from you listening in. What emotions are showing up for you right now? Feel free to leave a comment. If you're catching this on YouTube, on Spotify, you can comment directly on the episode. And of course, you can always bring a comment to happifiedlife.com, the web page on the site that I already mentioned. 3xlessstress.com is the parent, but come on over to happifiedlife.com and see the podcast episodes and hop on in on this one if that is not where you are already catching this episode. So what emotions are you feeling right now? And I'd like to know, if you know, what is the feeling underneath the feeling that you typically are recognizing? Have you been able to look beneath the surface and see what is going on? What might be tipping the scales and pushing you towards a feeling where you generally recognize there could be a little bit more going on? So, as I already kind of mentioned, heavier emotions, uncomfortable emotions, that's because I believe, and I hope that you will take on as well, that emotions are not bad or good. Some emotions are more favorable, more desirable, more pleasant, more magnetic, more energizing. Some emotions are harder, are heavier, are less comfortable, are depleting. And when we start to look at it that way, that emotions just have characteristics, a way of being, then again, it's an invitation to take a look at, why am I feeling heavy? Why is this uncomfortable? What is this emotion here to tell me? Because while I will say, let me know how you feel about this, that not everything we feel is true. Not every perspective, not every opinion that we take in, that we recognize within ourselves is true. However, it is an important messenger. So while we can't see the world as clearly delineated, yes or no, true or false, based only on the way we are feeling, it is so important to take that invitation to look at how you're feeling and get curious. Why am I angry? Why am I feeling so critical and judgmental of this person, this situation? Why do I feel guilty? Why do I feel shame? Is guilt more like shame? And what are we carrying about ourselves that tip that scales of guilt into shame, that personal judgment that we might carry? So when we take a look at these emotions, I'm never denigrating the way that we feel. However, I'm inviting you to bring curiosity and a little bit of objectivity to the way that you feel so that we can shine a light on it and we can move through it. The more we resist the way that we're feeling, the more we simply say it's not appropriate to feel anger, it's not appropriate to feel this way or that, the more we get stuck in these emotions. And emotions are energy, and we are energetic beings. So I don't think it's too woo to say, although if you hear some episodes, you might know that I love to dance in the woo-woo side of things, that when we don't let emotions move through us, they do take up residence. And they are waiting for that opportunity to come back up, and not always at the easiest or most appropriate time. So rather than getting stuck in whether emotions are good or bad, let's let them be as they are and wonder, are they comfortable or uncomfortable? Are they expansive or are they constricting? Are they energizing or are they depleting? There's a great tool that I love to visualize different emotions, and I'll include that along with a lot of other resources in the show notes today. The Yale Mood Scale is a tool that has been developed and is used in some classrooms, giving children the vocabulary of emotions, because we are so much more than we typically think. We are not sad, mad, or glad. We are delighted, we are content, we are in awe, we experience wonder, we have curiosity, we have concern, we have fear, we have terror, we have fright. There's different shades of all of these emotions. So it's time to start painting with all of the colors that we have available to us and really tapping into the vocabulary that we have available to us when it comes to emotions. So when we start to look beneath the surface and we wonder what that anger is about, anger might be a sign that a boundary has been crossed. Fear might be pointing to something that doesn't feel safe or something that needs attention in our lives. Just a warning sign. Stress is developed to save our body, our physical self, from harm. So when we feel stressful emotions like fear, we have to get curious. What am I feeling like I need protection from? Feeling guilty could mean, taking responsibility. Maybe it means crossing some bit of moral standard or ethics that is inside. And why did we do that? Were we feeling pushed to a action? Were we feeling driven to a course, maybe through the line of work or requests of some other people? So where is guilt coming from? Maybe that's reflecting responsibility that was not ours that we've taken on. Grief or guilt and shame can kind of follow each other and weave together and uncover some interesting responsibilities. Often people feeling grief feel like they need to move through it. However, that feeling of grief, of heaviness, of that pain that lives in our hearts may just be asking to be witnessed, not asking to be resolved or, as I said, moved through. And resentment might show us where we are, again, having crossed those boundaries, but where our needs are not being met. Because who is that up to? It's up to ourselves. We are the ones who can take a stand, to take action, to advocate for ourselves and our emotional balance. So if you're feeling some of these heavier emotions, then you can see the benefit of getting curious and looking below the waterline, if you will. The goal is not to eliminate every uncomfortable emotion. The goal is to create enough inner space that we can hear what the emotion is telling us and not let it drive our decisions or our actions. I love, as I've already mentioned, to use the Bach flower essences. If you're not familiar with them, perhaps you've heard of Rescue Remedy. It's widely available in a lot of pharmacies these days because it has historically had benefit. Rescue Remedy is wonderful in times of crisis. You can get oral drops in a tincture. They have little pastille candies, which are a lot easier to toss in your purse and have available. And they are wonderful support in the case of shock, of an accident, of anything that is very jarring physically or emotionally, where you are caught up in that and you need a little bit of support to bring you through that situation. So Rescue Remedy is wonderful for those shocking events, and it has 5 of Bach's 38 flower essences. Now there are many different types of flower essences: Southwestern, Alaskan, North American, the Flower Essence Service. So there's a lot of different flower essences you can work with. I keep it simple by primarily focusing on the Bach and dancing a little bit with the others, but we don't need to overwhelm you today with too many options. And so I'll try not to go down the rabbit hole because I do love the Bach flowers so much. I see them bring the light back to people. So let's take a brief look, if I can keep it nice and tight, at some of the emotions that are coming up and where they might be coming from, and some of the Bach flower essences that could give us support, just to illustrate kind of recognizing what the difference in the emotions that we're feeling, as well as the intention we can take by choosing an essence to dial in, to land on the exact shade of that emotion and start moving us towards emotions that feel more pleasant, uplifting, expansive, engaging, that give us the safety to move forward. So overwhelm and over-responsibility is something that I'm seeing a lot these days, coming from too much news and information, coming from financial worries and insecurity, not knowing what is coming next, but knowing that many of us are feeling stretched too thin. Work deadlines and responsibility, especially when you pile that on top of caregiving, either for growing children or parents who have more needs, feeling stretched thin, and then needing to tend to the home and supporting relationships, a romantic partner, and the social relationships that fill your cup. That responsibility that we carry, all of this can contribute to a heavy sense of overwhelm. And so just to illustrate how the different Bach flowers speak to that, and a popular one, elm for overwhelm. It's easy to remember for people who are typically up to the challenge but feeling currently overwhelmed. For that feeling that things have gotten a little heavy, elm is the beautiful essence for that. However, oak is one for people who have pushed and pushed and pushed until they are feeling utterly depleted. So oak is great for people feeling overwhelmed to the point of exhaustion, whereas olive is wonderful for feeling restorative when it's been through seasons of your life, when you've been over giving to the point where you just feel there's nothing left in the well. Olive will help to bring you back. There are more, but I'm not going to go too deeply there. Again, the resources that I can share, if this is piquing your curiosity, you can really tap into some beautiful support for yourself by working with the Bach flowers. I see people really struggling with fear and anticipatory anxiety, especially living as we are in the mid-year of 26, coming up to some mid-terms. People are starting to focus on the things that are happening around us. And so, beyond the typical fear that we have as caregivers, fear that we might have in the workplace if there's insecurity or instability there, fear looking at what is happening around us in the world. One of the wonderful remedies for fear, rock rose, is in Rescue Remedy. It is for feelings of terror, that gripping in the instant overwhelm. And so if you tend to have feelings that tip towards anxiety, the real panic grabbing you, rock rose is wonderful. And as I already mentioned, Rescue Remedy is a great one to keep in your purse for those experiences. Fearing for the people that you love is different than fearing of some particular event in your life. Having anxiety over some specific thing happening is more meaningless, whereas concern for the people in your life and always worrying worrying about their well-being is a little more red chestnut. So when you start to get curious about the emotions, that's why I love the flower essences, because they're a tool that invites you to really get curious about the type of that emotion, and that awareness, that attention, along with the intention of shifting your emotion, is so empowering. We are reclaiming control of ourselves, of our feelings, and the way that that energy moves through us. And so, as I'm seeing in many people, hypervigilance, the inability to stand down because so many things have been happening, because many of us feel it's our responsibility to stay plugged into the news, to not look away from what is happening in the world, as if our specific attention, the attention of one of us adding to the all of us, is going to turn things around. And I can tell you, we can stay apprised, we can stay informed, and we don't have to be plugged into every breaking bulletin every day. There is some balance that we can find there. We can still give our energy towards solutions and creating the world that is inclusive and safe and loving and accepting for all. And we can not be completely plugged in all of the time, giving our energy to these reports. So when we feel that hypervigilance, that concern, white chestnut is actually a kind of a gateway flower essence. It's the first one that had a huge impact for me because it calmed the mental chatter. If in any moment of peace, if when you are not busy with something else, your brain starts to spin with stories, and maybe that's why then we resort to scrolling to distract that busy mind, to give it something else to grind away on. If your mind tends to run away with your thoughts, then white chestnut is a beautiful flower essence to calm that down. If you're very passionate about your beliefs, if you are the one who tends to, anytime a topic comes up, get right back up on your soapbox and not be able to let it go because you feel so passionately. And we need that passion in the world, but we can't burn out with that passion. Vervain helps to balance that, to calm down, to come back into a lighter relationship with that conviction that tends to move you and drain your tank. As I've already mentioned, and as many of us probably come to first when we start talking about emotions, anger, resentment, irritability are definitely high these days. It's driving a lot of people. A lot of people are acting from resentment, from irritability, which comes up a lot. When we're feeling stressed, we just don't have the bandwidth to be calm, to listen to others, to fully understand where people are coming from. And so, from feeling unheard, from witnessing injustices, from feeling helpless to change those things. And then just on top of the usual feeling overworked, undersupported, and systems that aren't supporting us the way that we need to. Anger is an important emotion to feel, to let us know that lines are being crossed. An invitation to look for what needs changing, what action can we take, or how can we change the situation. Sometimes it's removing ourselves. Sometimes it's taking a stand and looking for ways to encourage other people to change. So anger is an important signal, and there are some great essences to balance that. When we tend to come first from a perspective of criticism and judgment, then beach is one. Beach rhymes with bitchy, so it's easy to remember those two. If you're feeling a little bitchy all the time, then beach might be an essence to reach for to help give you a little more calm and patience in this world that's just on our last nerve. Willow, on the other hand, is an essence that works deeply for anger, resentment, for the kind of reaction often to trauma, the trigger that is waiting. It's a match waiting to be lit. And so Willow works a little more deeply in long-standing issues of anger or victimization that can be fired up. And then holly is one of the most beautiful essences. Holly is a heart opener. So it helps to bring you back into a loving acceptance after you have been feeling jealousy, suspicion, hatred, those other emotions that the heart responds with. Holly will help you lighten that up so that you're not driven by that emotion and you have the opportunity to respond in a way that you need to make sure you are heard, respected, and safe. So feeling helpless, discouraged, and hopeless in this world, a lot of us can get stuck here, and there's plenty of reason, right? What we focus on grows. So when we recognize that we're feeling hopeless and despair, one thing that we can do, an action we can take for ourselves, is to turn down the channel that might be feeding that feeling, so that we have the space to look at that, to get real with that emotion and how we can shift it. So once we are not in the throes of it, then we can get objective to look for an action that can turn it around. And we don't have to solve the issue that has us feeling hopeless or lost in despair. Sometimes the first and most important thing we need to do is look for the way to fill our own cup, to help ourselves feel secure and safe and have the capacity to meet the things we might feel required to step into and to show up for. Gentian helps to ease discouragement after a setback, whereas sweet chestnut is a flower essence that some of us say is for those dark night of the soul moments. So if you are really feeling at the bottom of the well, if you're feeling like you can't find the light, then sweet chestnut can help you bring the light back, to help you be able to see that there are things that are working to your benefit. There are signs of hope out there. And as much as the loud voices out there want us to give up hope, to capture our attention, they keep drilling at home how hopeless things are, there are signs of hope. So with these essences that can help to bring the light back for you, mustard is another one that helps you to bring the light back in seasons of depression. These can help you create a little bit of space so that solutions feel available to you. Now, another emotion that a lot of us are feeling is guilt, survivor's guilt. I'm okay. I see a lot of things happening in the world, wildfires, earthquakes, war on the other side of the planet. I feel guilty that my life is easy right now. And trying to put ourselves in those situations, taking on the guilt of privilege, of feeling like we shouldn't have things as well as we do, does not help those who are suffering right now. I'm not saying lose the message. Hold on to the message. Again, look for ways that you can take action to be a helper. However, when we're stuck in the weight of guilt, that is not where the highest and best solutions are going to be coming from. So personally, I love pine. Pine is a wonderful flower essence for feelings of self-judgment. So sometimes just the little things. I didn't make it to the gym. I didn't eat right today. I didn't show up for that person the way that they wanted me to, and I feel guilty. Pine is great for those, as well as other situations where we take on self-blame and feeling we should have done more. Century is a great flower essence if you tend to take on guilt because you feel like you're not doing enough for other people. Century helps to relieve feelings that come from servitude, is how I remember those. Century relieves servitude. So if you tend to overcommit and overgive and not maintain those boundaries for yourself that keep you resourced so that you can show up the way that you want to, Century is a beautiful essence for that. And as I mentioned already, shame is one of those emotions that isn't fair to us. It comes from feeling guilty, but shame is darker, is heavier, is something, again, that self-judgment that we put on ourselves that could be hiding other feelings. You know, we have to ask, would you talk to another person the way you might be talking to yourself when you're stuck in that cycle of shame? Crabapple is a lovely flower essence for cleansing, for clearing, and it also clears those feelings of impurity, of shame, of self-disgust, being uncomfortable with ourselves. Crabapple is a lovely cleanser. So to clear the slate, that's a lovely one. And agrimony is a wonderful essence, although you might have to also explain to folks where your words are coming from when agrimony helps you drop the facade and be more authentic. Agrimony helps you reclaim your authentic voice. And sometimes people who aren't used to that can be a little bit shocked. So agrimony can help you show up and state your own needs. It might change the dynamic in some relationships. It might bring a little more authenticity and truth and help you honor your boundaries. So agrimony is an essence that can be very powerful, especially if it's something that you've been letting slide for a little while. If folks have been inside of your boundaries as opposed to outside of that, not a impenetrable wall, but just a space, a space. As I heard Prentice Temple say, boundaries are the place at which I can love both you and me. So we're not shutting people out when we establish and maintain our boundaries, but we are honoring ourselves by giving ourselves that space. An emotion that I feel many of us are feeling, and we might not recognize it or name it as this. We might not think we have reason to be feeling grief, but a lot of us are really struggling with grief right now. Since the pandemic, I noticed that people are grieving the loss of things. Certainly when we were so restricted, we felt the grief of perhaps losing the connections we had at work, losing our personal freedom, and then we lost people physically as well. And I do feel that there are levels of grief that have come from there that we've never addressed or resolved, that are now being compounded by other events and happenings in life. Feeling loss, feeling disillusionment. Sometimes grief is not losing a person, it's losing a dream. It's losing a vision of what could be. It's being disillusioned perhaps in the place we've come to in the states that we feel so divided and really pitted against each other, because that is what's happening. There are entities that are managing the message so that we feel that there is no space, there is no overlap, there is no way in which we share anything in common with the people who don't feel like we do. And the more that we feel divided, the more we're buying what they're selling, the more hopeless we feel, the more grief it naturally we're going to experience, because we feel like there's a whole band of people who could never be back on the same page where we are. And that's why it's important to be having conversations, to be remembering that there are things that we have in common. And in our own personal space, in our personal responsibility, we can look for ways to move through this grief. It's not a linear cycle. However, recognizing it, honoring it, looking for the ways to refill our cup are what is going to help this shift. So whether you're feeling grief from a personal loss, from losing a future vision that you were passionate about, for losing a community that no longer feels like home or no longer feels safe to you, losing a dream of a financial security, losing the innocence or the optimism we once had about a vision of the way that the world worked, that right now we see a lot of reason to worry that that might not be true. So to move through these spaces of grief, of loss, of disillusionment, there are some wonderful flower essences. Let's just get right to the bottom line here. Star of Bethlehem is a beautiful healer. It restores your spirit. Star of Bethlehem is a wonderful essence to use following trauma, when you feel separated from the divine spirit, from God, from the universe, whatever you want to call it, from the energy that is within all of us. Because we are all working within a unified energetic field here. We're all made of energy. Energy is moving through all of us all of the time. The energy, the emotions of other people influence us. So when it's time to heal ourselves, to restore the connection, Star of Bethlehem is a beautiful essence for that, for recovering from shock and trauma and painful experiences, recognizing that we can come back to that point of connection. We can restore and we can see that again. Sweet chestnut is one I already mentioned, kind of for the heavy, heavy days, that dark night of the soul, when we've reached our limit. And walnut is a wonderful essence to help us through all times of transition. Life is always going to bring us change. And so maybe there's never a bad time for walnut, but certainly if you're in a time or space right now where things are changing, if the kids are growing and leaving the house, if the parents are requiring more time and support, and that is changing the way your time and energy gets to be managed, changing a job, changing a home, changing seasons, or be moving in the next couple of months from the high, bright energy of summer into the cooling, calming, taking in and restoring ourselves energy of autumn. Walnut's a wonderful one to help us through any transition that we might be navigating right now. We tend to feel numb and shut down, and by opening back up, by moving through that protective emotion with essences like wild rose, which restores our passion, is so helpful to turn your light back on. Bring you back to it. So if you're feeling resigned or flat, the things that you love just don't light you up anymore, wild rose is a beautiful essence for that. Compassion fatigue is another thing that I see wearing people down. Again, oak, if you have given and given and given, if you have pushed yourself to give until you're at your last limb, if you will, then oak will help to restore you. And olive, if you're feeling utterly depleted. There are so many different directions, and I don't want to get too long-winded just because I have all of these wonderful tools available. So I have resources that I can share with you. I'll be coming back to that after we talk a little bit about flower essences. What the heck are they? Let me just give you a little bit of a glimpse on that, and there's a lot more you can learn if you choose to pick up the workshop that I'll share with you and add that to your digital library. Flower essences carry the energetic signature of the plant. As I was already saying, we are made of energy. At the atomic level, there is more energy than matter in our atoms, which make up the molecules, which make up the parts of the cells that become the tissues, that become the organs, that are the systems that are our body. You see, from the molecular level, we are energetic beings, and so are plants. And they're all different. When you look at the color, the shape, the signature of flowers, and this is how Dr. Edward Bach in the 1930s, working in the countryside of Wales, began to connect with the energetic properties of different plants. And through that work that he did, he identified 38 flowers, and we can really dive into the ways that then he identified they work with 7 different types of people and fine-tune from there. As you've already seen today, there's a lot of opportunity for refinement and fine-tuning when you're working with these to really land on exactly the shift you can be looking for. So flower essences are made from these different flowers. They do not contain the chemical properties of the flowers, so they're safe to use with medications. So I tend to use the example of a spectrum. Essential oils are very concentrated, very potent. They have a lot of plant material going into a little bottle of essential oil, and they're wonderful. And they have aromatherapeutic and physical benefits. Working with essential oils, I do use them. And flower essences are on the other end of the spectrum. Flower essences are very chemically dilute, but energetically strong remedies. They carry that energetic signature of the flower, and they just work. It's one of those things that you really have to experience, and that's why Rescue Remedy is one of the first recommendations I make to people. It's readily available at most pharmacies, and if you feel the benefit of that in those situations of extreme stress or fright, anger, or an injury or an accident, you feel that lighten your mood and help to resolve stress, then I hope you'll feel invited to dive a little deeper to look at how Bach flowers can help to relieve other emotions. Now, these are not a replacement, and this is not medical advice. These are not all that you need to resolve emotions if there are things that feel bigger than you can manage. These can be used in conjunction with working with medical practitioners, with therapists, or psychiatrists, and people who can help you use the tools. Certainly myself as a stress transformation coach, I love to help people round out their toolkit, and this is not all that I use. However, I love the way that Bach flowers invite you to bring intention with the awareness as you're looking at how you feel. You don't even have to get into the whole story of why you're feeling something. This is just an invitation to look at how you're feeling and how you would like to feel. And then we can find the essence or a couple of essences that will help you make that shift. So they're beautiful, they're safe. I use them on pets. They can be used from people at any age, from infants up to older people in our family, people who are having memory issues and loss and discomfort with that. They're really beautifully effective. And when you see them work in a pet where you don't have the placebo effect, you really see how that difference can be beneficial. They are really great if you are bringing a new pet into the house or helping pets through transition. They're wonderful tools to have in your toolkit. I do also want to explain, as I've mentioned a couple of times before, but this is the perfect time to talk about that feeling of emotions and where they land on the spectrum. Moving from fear to faith, moving from anger to acceptance, moving from shame to self-love, moving from grief to peace. So it's not about flipping a switch. It's not, sometimes people expect the quick reaction that we get from chemical interventions, from pharmaceuticals, or even herbs. And often the way that I hear people coming back to me and talking about their experience with flower essences is noticing how they don't feel anymore, how they might not be triggered by something, how they might not be stuck in that mental loop, the mental chatter that wears them on, that keeps them from falling asleep at night. And so when we feel relief, when we feel ourselves coming back to the place in the spectrum of emotion that feels more comfortable, lighter and brighter, that's the benefit that I see flower essences bringing to people. So we don't use flower essences to delete, to numb out, to mute the emotion, to deny the darkness of the feeling that we're having right now. Flower essences shine an inner light, and they bring the quality that will help us to meet what we're experiencing. We're not overriding or ignoring the darkness, but we are meeting it. We're strengthening ourselves. We're finding the fortitude to move through these times that feel so challenging and demanding. So in working with someone like myself who can, as I already mentioned, bring some of these essences together to really identify the different things that might be going on for a person that we're working with, and say, okay, what is the first thing we want to look at? What are acute emotions that are coming right now out of specific situations, and what are deeper patterns? What are more chronic emotional patterns that we might be carrying that we can start to relieve and lift, so that you have less of that burden that we tend to carry, and you have more capacity to meet what life is serving up. So as I often say, we can't read the label when we're inside the jar. This goes for myself too. I work with people who help reflect back to me where I am, where I'm stuck in the same patterns and loops. And that is what I love to do with the folks that I work with, is to simply be there to hold the space, to help reflect some of the things that are hard to see, so that we can get clarity on the vision. We can reconnect with the values that are aligned for us, with the emotions that we want to be feeling more of, so that we can move towards the goals that we have without feeling depleted, afraid, ashamed of being off track, angry when we get criticism with the feedback. By having more capacity to receive all of those things, it makes it easier to move forward and to move in the direction that you are looking for. So that's why I love to work with people. I do that in several different ways. I have some blends for specific situations, for easier sleep, for better focus, for a meditative mind. See, there's even a difference there between having focus for work versus having a more peaceful and open mind for meditation. Clearing the clutter is another bottle that sometimes is in high demand. It's had its season this year, to be sure. And so I've got some stock remedies that I work from, and I love to really dive in and dial it in with my clients. So that's one way that I love to work with folks. There is also the ability to learn and use these for yourselves. That's something that Dr. Bach was very passionate about, that this be something like a home pharmacy. And so the creator of the North American Essences Flower Essence Services offers a whole kit that is really very reasonably priced and becomes something you can use for yourself and your entire family. If this is something that you, through the course of what I've been talking about today, say, oh, I resonate with that, and a little bit of that, I feel that too. Sometimes people want to start out with 30 of the 38 flower essences in their first combination bottle, which is when I'd love to step in and help. But you can get a kit and have all of those available to you so that it's easier to change your selection day by day. I have a great resource for you to go along with that. That is the Back to Balance with Bach Flowers digital workshop. This is a workshop that I have recorded and comes with a PDF guide explaining, again, what flower essences are, how you can create your own blends. It has reference to different flower essences and correlating those with different emotions, and a reference chart that I created that helps you visualize. If you're a visual person like myself, it breaks the essences into Bach's 7 types, also indicating which tend to land with more chronic versus acute issues. It's just interesting as we work with the flowers and get to know them better to see those patterns for ourselves. So there's a link in the show notes for my Back to Balance with Bach Flowers workshop. If you're a do-it-yourselfer, I'd love to share that with you. And that, of course, comes with the opportunity to have a conversation with me and follow up. I'm not going to leave you out there once you dive in and decide to build your home pharmacy, if that's something you like to do. So through consultation and creating custom blends for my clients, or helping people feel competent and confident in their own practice, I love to bring the Bach flowers to the people. So I've got some other podcasts where I've talked about flower essences. If you're ready to continue diving down this rabbit hole, I will share those with you too. And so let this be an invitation to you to look for tools that work for you. These are an item in my toolkit that I happen to pull out daily. I have my bottle of focus flowers right here on my desk, so I use those every day. And let these be a way that you can lighten the load. Some people are triggered by the word balance, life-work balance. We think that we have to achieve it. We put it out there like a goal, like life-work balance is a goal, and once you get it, you stay in it. I see balance like a teeter-totter. And so this gives you a little more peace and acceptance with the shift. Sometimes it's heavier on the work. Sometimes our personal lives demand more attention and we need to make that shift over there. So by having the flexibility and capacity, it's so much easier to meet these demands. So by recognizing we don't have to be triggered by every news story that we take in, by recognizing we don't have to answer every request that's coming in from other folks, by recognizing we get to choose how we respond. We can be responding as opposed to reacting from that triggered place. These are the tools that I love to share with you, and I hope that you're inspired to give flower essences a try. So if you have more questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Again, the website where all of the podcasts are is happifiedlife.com, and you'll see there the connection to the rest of my website, the opportunity to connect with me. And I invite you to look at ways you can add this or other tools to your self-care toolkit to make your life a little bit lighter and brighter in these times that can feel more heavy. Thanks for joining me today for this deep dive into flower essences. There is so much more to share about these, so I'd love to continue the conversation. I look forward to answering your questions in the comments. And until we get together next time with stress management and resilience tools for your happified life, I hope that you will take good care of yourself. Thanks for listening. You'll find all the resources we discussed today online at happifiedlife.com, along with links to subscribe to Happified on your favorite player and a handy search tool so you can search all of our previous episodes. Help us grow by leaving a quick review and share this episode with a friend. Until next time, keep on shining.